just wanted to start out by giving a little bit of a preface of what we're doing. We feel very strongly that providing avenues for the greater WebTide community to be involved in the planning process is a key part of our continued success. And so to that extent, we're really excited to kind of offer this as an additional venue for y'all to interact with us, and for it to be done in such a way that at your own leisure you can kind of check in on us as a coordinating group to see how we're progressing different projects and what's going on inside the community, so that if you aren't able to make it to the meetings, you'll have this video as a resource. So this is a new way of dealing with these meetings, so the volume may be terrible. You may just be seeing static and not as we'll work out any kinks as we move. We are down a coordinator. Tori may join us a little bit later on, but I know that he has had a lot on his plate. So to kind of get the ball rolling, we have a little bit of a note sheet here, and our agendas, we're going to try to work to get those posted after the fact onto the website so that y'all know what we've been talking about. Basically, I wanted to talk a little bit about the reason why we open these meetings, which I've kind of already covered, but it's, hello.
Hi.
But it's also towards the mission of WebTide, which one of the things that makes WebTide unique from some of the other committees is that we act in service to the web community itself. We're not a part of the policy-making structure. We're not. Our mission and our goals aren't directly tied to a lot of those policy-making organs. We serve for the betterment of the web professionals. To that extent, the best term for us is probably a community of practice. Yeah. And so, to that extent, that's kind of why we're here, and that's what the coordinating group is designed to help with. One of the other things I wanted to mention is over the last few months, and I apologize for the rest of the coordinating group, a lot of this is going to be rehashing stuff we've already covered. But going forward, we talked about having the accessibility subcommittee and having different subcommittees to do different things. And we decided that it might work a little bit better to treat initiatives that we feel strongly about, that we have people in the community who might want to carry the ball forward with, treat them as projects. And then whoever feels passionately about it will work to provide some sort of spinal column of coordination, being the coordinating group. But let's say, for instance, I know that there is a possibility of being able to work on a tool for the accessibility side of things using AMP and a new API that they had done. And we had several people who were kind of excited to possibly get to work with other WebTide people, put something together that different people like running WordPress could use. That is a good example of, instead of having like a dedicated dedicated development group or subcommittee, we would have just a group of people who would work together for that specific project and then make kind of version 1.0 or whatever that tool may be. And then that also gives us the ability to kind of iterate it and document it and then provide it as a static resource to people. And then if people have additional items they want to change on that tool, then that can be handled as a separate project. So then you can hopefully start to get kind of a cycle of making whatever we do better. And that's just like a tangible example of like a plugin or something. But the same really holds true, for instance, with Hyatt Web meetups and things that we plan in a more social context. So yeah. The other item that I wanted to provide an update on is the updated composition of the coordinating group. We're pretty much kind of knights of the round table in the old days with Rachel Carden, and if Rachel Carden thought you had something to bring to the table, she would kind of knight you, and then you became somebody to help out with WebTide. One of the things that we're really excited about, though, is to kind of get a little bit of a structure so that we have people rotating in and out. And that provides, again, hopefully more opportunities for people to kind of be involved in the planning process. What we've agreed upon amongst ourselves over the last few months is that we're going to start having terms of service. And we've pretty much agreed upon 2 years is good. And 2 people will rotate out every year. Hence the reason for 2 years. Kamisha and I are grizzled WebTide veterans, and so that means that we will probably be the first to rotate out. We haven't nailed down exactly what that time frame is going to be. The first part of this meeting, I'm just kind of regurgitating here everything we've been doing, and then the second part we can kind of chat back and forth about what we think. The other item that we feel very strongly about is we want to make a direct connection with WebTide to the major areas that have a footprint in making web services happen at UA. And here at UA, that's Webcom and OIT. This is something that I want us to kind of discuss coming up, but we would like to send a note to Andy Rainey and also John McGowan to have them delegate someone to effectively be a representative to be a part of the WebTide Coordinating Group. And those would be, I'm thinking it would, yes, that's the reason I'm kind of, but we really think this would be a good way to kind of make sure that there's some connected tissue there that we've lacked historically. And so those 2 seats would be permanent on the coordinating group. So that would grow the coordinating group to 6 people. 4 that are chosen from amongst the WebTide group, probably through nomination. And that's, again, something we need to kind of nail down. And then 2 that are permanent, 1 for Webcom, 1 for OIT. This is kind of based off of a model that other universities use for communities of purpose that are kind of open, like WebTide is, and so we think it's a decent model to go off of. So that kind of brings y'all up to speed, I think, on the items that we've been kind of that we felt confident doing before kind of opening the doors up to get more feedback. So to start the kind of open forum part of the conversation, let's go ahead and talk about the coordinating group. There's some details that we kind of need to iron out with that, but what's the general feeling from y'all? And I'm kind of going to try to be good about monitoring the Slack channel to see if we have any takers there. On that notion of providing some structure there and having people rotate in and out.
I think it would be great to have more input from Webcom. They kind of popped up here and there, but never been a steady presence.
And their team has grown significantly recently, so they might have more resources to allow and have somebody able to implement.
Yeah, that's kind of our thought too. And again, just to have some communication conduit there, we think is healthy. So there are a couple of nuances here that immediately spring by. Number one, when do we want to do the nomination and election? When do people rotate out? I think we had mentioned amongst ourselves the possibility of June. January is another kind of the beginning of the year. I don't know. What do we think? What was the thinking behind June? Refresh my memory. I think Kim, you had some thoughts on this. We expected calendars.
I think that's what it was.
It's 2 months from or some we start talking about expanded coordinating group.
Yeah,
Use those language to,
yeah.
yeah, not to my window.
So at the beginning of the year is good and clean, but it's also in the middle of an academic cycle. Um, June is good because it kind of moves it out of the heavier, the fall spring semester blocks. So I do not have a strong opinion either way. Since we talked about June, something does occur though. A lot of people take vacations during this month, which would mean that nominations might get tricky because people will be here to participate. Whereas most people are around in December. December's also kind of it's a hard month to organize anything, like in terms of programming.
Yeah.
That could be a way to utilize that time.
Do you have a big welcome back meeting in August and people vote at that time and you start in September? I'm new here.
That's true.
Depending on handling nominations and voting.
We have a year to figure it out.
Well, if you have a form and you leave like nominations open for 2 weeks and voting open for 2 weeks, then that should be plenty of time to deal with vacation if you still want to do it in summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that something like Qualtrics would be something that we would use. So were you saying the June timeframe?
I mean, yeah, if you have it open for longer, then I think any of persons takes vacation for a month.
Yeah.
So where you work.
That's a good point.
So maybe June 1st or 15th. Have the survey open.
Yeah.
And that's to get on the ballot, and then the second part, the 16th through the end of the month.
Thinking maybe nominations the month before, because that gives us a month to announce, and then repeat it in a meeting in front of people, and then the next month we would have the election, and then I guess announce the results in the next meeting.
So we're looking into July.
Nominations in May, and then elections in June. Or we could do June and July. Let's do June and July.
Is there any time period they were going to require a person to be a member of WebTide before they're nominated to serve on the coordinating committee?
Okay, so this gets interesting. There's some practical considerations, and this is kind of one of them. Should there be that? I don't know. We don't really have a strong like, what does it mean to be a WebTide member? Right now, it just means that you filled out a form one day on the WebTide site, and if you're nominally it's not like we charge dues or anything.
What about like a staff member for 6 months?
Yeah.
Like, in position for 6 months. At UA as a whole. Then your position.
That's
technically permanent.
That's
how TSA does it, right? Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I would also like to float, it's something that a couple of other universities do that have systems like this, and I think it's a good system, is to basically say either sum total in coordinating group or each nomination cycle, please only one person per work group. And I think that makes sense to ensure kind of a diversity of opinion. Because, like, for instance, our world at A&S is starkly different than Kamisha's world in financial affairs. And so we have as many viewpoints as possible. I think it makes sense to try to make sure that we have as many different units represented if possible. Are there any? So we'll say one unit, one person per unit. represented on the group. Another item that we talked about amongst ourselves, and I'm kind of interested to get y'all's opinion on, is are there term limits? Like, for instance, let's say Kim super duper loves being part of planning. Can she renominate herself or have somebody that item? I think it would be good to have some sort of cap. We discussed maybe you can once, but 2 years is a long time too. So I could see saying actually, don't renominate. Do we have any strong opinions? I will say it also kind of helps with the idea of making sure that you have turnover where you get people from additional units in. And if you have somebody who is just, stays there on and on and on, for like 4 years, then that robs other units of the ability to, play a part.
Yeah, the same train of thought with the two standing members.
Yeah.
One from WebCom and from OIT. Have a different person every year, have the same person continue on.
I think practically speaking, it's probably best to have those serve at the pleasure of the directors of the respective divisions. For instance, that would be up to Andy to delegate, for WebCom, and it would be up to Dr. McGowan to delegate. However, having that not be a creature of the WebTide selection process, I kind of like.
Agreed. So when you say term limits, are you talking back to back or just period?
I'm thinking back to back.
Back in 2 years.
Yeah, come back in 2 years.
2 years, that's it.
Yeah, let somebody else run with the baton for a bit. Now this is another thing that as we have these open meetings more, like we are kind of the organizational skeleton, but I want to make it easier for people in WebTide to participate and do things. Because one of the ways that WebTide in the past is you've had 1 or 2 people who are really kind of the go-getters. I want to make it easier for the community as a whole to kind of participate and interact and produce things that are meaningful, whether it's meetups or development opportunities or even tools. And I think that a key element of that is making sure that people feel comfortable giving time to WebTide, that their time's being used well. So were there any other elements of the coordinating group that we kind of had up in the air? I think we've kind of settled on the idea of having some degree of a term limit, maybe just no renomination.
Right.
Since the terms are so long. So for y'all, since y'all haven't been kind of a party to our thinking, do y'all have any questions or anybody online kind of about what we're talking about and why we're doing this degree of organizational?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess I assume people have different roles within the coordinating group, like, or is it just wide open? Everybody's a member. Are you always taking notes? Is somebody else planning the next event? Like, who runs the social media? Those kind of questions.
That's a good question. Right now, we kind of share responsibilities as the need arises. I'm not sure that we talked about actually delegating specific roles, but for the immediate future, I think having it be a little bit more fluid works a bit better for everybody's workload. And then we'll have to see how it goes. and what works for us. But the direct answer is right now it's organic. I do think, particularly for us, it's kind of healthy to not have two roles that are too prescribed, because I don't want to get so structured that we have like a president of WebTide. I think we're at our best when we're our community helps with the very essential narrative that we're a governance tool. It's not, a committee in the way that like the PSA is, or it helps us kind of stay true to that theme. But that raises clear concerns though about who does what, and so that's something I think we have to kind of iron out. Some of this, it's new to all of us. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just thinking
A non-answer answer.
As people roll off and as people come on, it's just good to make sure that all of the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and nothing's false. That's just what I was thinking.
I absolutely agree. And some of this too is going to, we're doing so much new.
Yeah.
That's the other reason why I think it's good to have it be a little bit organic at the beginning, because it gives us the flexibility to kind of try a bunch of different things and see what works for us. So this leads to the idea of the project groups, and what do they look like? We had a conversation about whether they need to be sponsored by somebody from the coordinating group. This starts to get into stuff that we weren't comfortable just making a decision. We felt that having some people from the community at least be a part of the conversation made a lot of sense. And so we kind of held off on doing too much cogitation on this until we opened the meetings. We had the Hyatt Web meetup that I think we've had interest in people doing, so that's one project. And then what was the current status on the accessibility tool API thing?
Updates on that just yet.
Okay.
We need to get back with the developer from SSB and see if we can actually use their API.
Okay.
I think they're, I don't know how they're, I don't know, we're gonna see about that, but
Okay.
because we haven't met back with that whole group yet, so.
What I would like, oh, I'm sorry.
It's on the radar though.
Okay, cool. What I would like to have is whenever we have a project, it would need to report monthly through this vehicle, just so that we can keep tabs and make sure the progress is being made. But B, so that we can turn that information over to the community, so that if additional people want to help, they can, but at the very least, that the general WebTide community knows what's going on with something. And hopefully that will also prevent things that we have an idea about just kind of growing mold. Maybe during our next chat, because this chat is real kind of dense in material about just structural stuff, maybe next month we can start putting together something maybe for the accessibility tool and possibly cobbling together a couple of people that may be interested in actually doing something on the ground with that, programming wise. So then that gives something hard to talk to SSB part about. And that may help the conversations that y'all have with them. Do we want the projects then to have a sponsor on the coordinating, or having them run as a vehicle purely of the community? What do we think makes the most sense?
For the project group, being the subcommittee of the coordinating group. And we do have a sponsor, one of the coordinating members.
I do want to make sure that that we don't have kind of permanent committees.
Well, the ad hoc.
Yeah. So no, I think that probably makes sense. So basically, would be sponsored by somebody on board. This brings up the eventuality of what happens when the sponsor rotates off. You would need to make sure that somebody carries the baton. Given that I'm hoping that most of these projects are relatively short-lived, that hopefully that wouldn't matter. You would just make sure that you know your term is coming up. Whatever you're working on gets done by then. That I think kind of also helps with having these larger subgroups that after their initial mission is kind of expired, they kind of stick around for a bit and they're not really sure what to do with themselves, which is kind of common with subcommittees, and help steer around that eventuality. So, so that probably means that wouldn't be a concern then. I know that the only thing that we've done like this in the past, we had an initiative to bring in some student engagement through some of the student organizations and have them kind of partner with WebTide on little things. And our decision at that point was to have at least 2 people in the community involved. Do we want to say, in order to make this a go, we need a certain base level of interest? And if so, what's a
It'll kind of depend on what the project is. It may or may not need more input.
Yeah.
And some projects will be smaller and probably just need 1 person for the coordinating group instead of 2.
Yeah. So maybe the sponsor from the coordinating group and maybe 1 person from the community? For total?
Yeah.
A total of 2? The display keeps blanking, so if you see people just immediately kind of cast an eye towards the camera, that's what's going on. If I put this full screen, it'll stop that, but that'll also mean that I can't see the chat. This is the growing pains I was talking a little bit about. All things considered, we'll research in the future how to keep the screen from blanking. All right, so this kind of makes sense. So do you want to talk a little bit about then the High Ed Web meetup, since we've kind of plowed through most of the has High Ed Web even have they announced any meetups that have actually been produced?
Not noticed any, but you share your screen, go up on tab.
Oh, I think I blew us offline.
No, you have your tab up.
No. It's another one. Let's try pulling up High Ed Web. And then conferences, and then annual regional conferences. What gives me pause is that their information here still just reflects the regional conferences. There's a little bit of a mention of a meetup. So there's not yet a template to go by, as far as I can tell.
It's applications you have to fill out.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where they would store the information for the ones that have taken place, or the ones they've accepted as being a meetup.
Kamusha, you said that you had 2 people with interest in helping with this?
Yes.
Okay. For the next meeting, can you reach out to them and so that we can get the ball rolling on that?
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. And then that'll start to flesh out some of our talking points for next month.
Also, is there anybody else that's available that would like to be part of the please let me know.
to that extent, Kim, did you have anybody in mind that you could reach out to over this month? Or do you want to wait until next month so that we can put out kind of some feelers to the community to get some people who may be interested in working on the accessibility thing?
Maybe we should see how many that are interested in that.
Okay.
First. And then that would be, I think that would be a better proposal to at this meeting.
Right. Okay. So, so that puts the hide web thing then a bit further down the road than in terms of being accomplished, because we already have some folks that we know. Cool.
I mean, I can still talk to them. I can do both.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind.
Tell you what, let's just go ahead and make an announcement about it, and then see if we can get some respondents, and then. And this is something there's some ideas that we may have that there's just not a lot of community time broadly for people to kind of make these things a go. For instance, we would really like to do another something like the Hyatt Web regional conference that we did, but we don't have a good sense yet of what people's time looks like. And that's something that we're hoping by opening these meetings, we get a better sense of that, of what interest level is there for doing neat ideas that we have, and some things just might be a non-starter for community support to actually make it go. But other things organically might kind of rise to the surface that otherwise we didn't know about, just because we're kind of sitting here brainstorming all on our own. And for the purposes of anybody catching us digitally, that is one value add that we want to achieve. Whether you join us in Slack or whether you actually physically come see us during these meetings, we kind of want your ideas as well. So in terms of the actual agenda notes, we've hammered out most of what we wanted to get out, I think, this particular session. So if we don't have any new items to chat about, this month's community meetup is, of course, the tools and stuff. It's going to be a lighter session. Again, people are taking vacations and whatnot, and so I'll be interested to see what the attendance looks like. I wouldn't be surprised if it's lighter. So yeah, that's most of the stuff I had. Did y'all have anything you wanted to discuss or go over before we kind of wrap things up?
Have you received any submissions from anybody about the tools that we're going to talk about? Does anybody have any in particular they want to?
Honestly, I haven't looked. I'm going to send out a reminder the week of WebTide meetup, and then I'm going to check.
Okay.
I suspect not.
So we'll make sure we get to the entire list of the ones we have interest.
Don't y'all tell either. I suspect not. But we're busy, and I think when it gets closer to WebTide, I have some more responses. I don't know that for sure. All righty. Well, one of the things meetings, but particularly for this, since we are all coming from different areas of campus, I try to make these kind of tidy and compact and not have them go on and on. So if we don't have any further items, then that may be a wrap. So thank y'all for seeing us online, and thank y'all for making the trek. And I guess that does us. We need to come up with some sort of neat tagline for stopping these things, I guess. Well, bye.